Hey folks, Jimmy Cavanaugh here with Garrett WInegar. Garrett, good to have you with us. First time covering an IU football game. Decent experience?
Very decent.
Okay, well
Exciting game.
let's lead this off by letting people know what happened. IU prevails 24-21. First time they win back-to-back conference games in, I think, 5 years. Not great with math, but since 2007. Really good game today. Talk about what you saw about them dealing with pressure, how they responded to it.
Well, you could see from the beginning it was a little sluggish, but that could have had something to do with the hour delay on the game. It wasn't a normal routine, but from there, the defense really stepped it up after that first drive by Iowa and kept them out of the end zone for a long time. And then once Kaufman entered the game again, he played extraordinarily well and just had a really good game.
Now, you talked a little earlier in the week. You went to Coach Wilson's first press conference, the one on Tuesday, and he said something about controlling the line of scrimmage, being physical against Iowa, another physical team. Kind of talk about what you saw there, where IU played Iowa really physical, outgained them by more than 100 yards, and did just about everything they needed to do to get this win.
Yeah, initially coming out, you wondered if they were going to be able to compete physically with that first drive by Iowa. They kind of controlled the line of scrimmage, ran the ball effectively, but I think the Hoosiers really accepted the challenge. They stepped it up, and the offensive line protected well, gave Cam Kaufman and Sudfeld when he was in time to make plays, and the defensive line, they stepped up, they controlled the line of scrimmage, and just matched the physicality that Iowa likes to play with.
It's a little surprising, too. I mean, when you look at the rushing stats, Stephen Houston didn't have himself a great game individually. He didn't have a touchdown for the first time in a while. But IU controlled the line of scrimmage when they needed to. Their offensive line stepped up big in the second half, gave Cam Kaufman all the time he needed to make the throws that he needed to make. And coming into the game, people wondered whether or not it was going to be Cam Kaufman as the starter. A lot of people were calling for Nate Sudfeld, and that's just what they got. Talk a little about what you saw from Sudfeld as soon as he got it.
Well, Sudfeld, he made that first error on that first throw, gave up a pick six. Obviously, that wasn't a good decision, but I mean, he improved after that. But I think at the end of the second half, they just wanted to give Kaufman another chance. Coach Wilson stated that he thought Kaufman was playing a little cautious at the beginning of the game, so he wanted to give Sudfeld a chance. After he didn't really perform up to par, Kaufman came back in, led that 2-minute offense, got a touchdown on the board at the end of the first half, which was huge, going into the halftime. And then in the second half, I mean, I think he went 20 for 28 after he came back in the game. Just absolutely was accurate and had a great second half leading the Hoosiers.
First 300-yard passer under Kevin Wilson, first 300-yard passer since Ben Chappell. 3 touchdowns, all of them to Cody Latimer. But the assertiveness that he played with, he talked about it after the game when a few people asked him about that, just talking about how he'd already been benched once before. Has IU seen this kind of quarterback production yet? I know the stats say it, but what did you like about the way he handled himself out there, especially in the second half?
I mean, they've had success during the football season. Obviously, they put up points against good defenses, but for him to come in and lead the team, it was almost like he was aggressive. He was confident in his play, and I don't think we've seen that type of effort from QB this year, just in control of the offense and just leading the team.
It obviously helps when his receivers help.
Yeah.
Cody Latimer had one heck of a day, 3 touchdowns, first time I believe that's happened since James Hardy, who had 4 in one game. And Kofi Hughes had 100 yards as well. Ted Bolser with 86 yards. Talk about what you saw from the receiving core, because those three guys had big days, and then other guys stepping up among the other wide receivers.
Yeah, one thing you noticed, it usually wasn't Kaufman's first read or the first route they looked to, but it was the receivers actually making plays after Kaufman extended in the pocket, stayed alive, was able to dodge a few tackles, and then the receivers were able to step up, get open, and Kaufman made the right reads and found open guys.
Now, we've talked a lot about the offense. It's time to talk about the defense, because Iowa scored 21 points. 7 of those came on a Nate Sudfeld pick 6. They obviously made the extra point. Iowa scored on their first drive, made it 7-0. They scored 1 other touchdown all day. We already talked about IU outgaining them by more than 100 yards. Talk about the defense today. Replogle, Larry Black both had great games. Antonio Marshall with a big interception. How big is it for the defense to step up like they did?
Yeah. One thing Antonio Marshall said after the game was that defense philosophy has always been to bend but not break. And he said he missed a tackle on that drive and he was able to come back and get that interception. And he just was happy with himself for making the play. But just the whole game, even when Iowa was able to get yards, move the chains, the defense bend, but they rarely broke. And that can be a little stressful for fans of IU getting close to the end zone, but Hoosiers were able to step up, make big plays. The defensive line matched the physicality, which they needed to do with the offensive line of Iowa, and stepped up and held them to only 7 points after that first drive.
And Kevin Wilson talked about it too afterwards. Antonio Marshall, the guy you just talked about, had a huge pick in the first half. Iowa was driving; they were already up 14-3. They would have gone up 21-3 if they had been able to convert that touchdown. That's a big hole for IU to climb out of. They didn't need to climb out of it. Marshall made a big play on the ball, and the defensive line stepping up huge too. I saw a stat that I was shocked at, that Indiana is one of the top teams in the Big Ten at tackles for loss. A great game, again attributable to the defensive line. Talked about Blacker, Plogel. Zach Shaw had a good game. He had a couple big pressures. Let's just talk about, in particular, what we like about the way IU's defensive philosophy has been there. Because this is not IU's traditional mantra. The Hoosiers, normally a really good offensive team with defensive downfall. Antoine Randall, Kellen Lewis. Every great offense they've had, it seems their defense has been a step slow. Defense keeps them in this game. How different is that?
One thing you notice, that, as you mentioned, the tackles for loss, you're not seeing a lot of blitzes from the Hoosier defense. It's mostly the front. They're getting past their men. They're getting to the quarterback, and that pressure's taking a little bit of the stress off the cornerbacks and the safeties, because their opposing quarterback is always under pressure and struggling to make passes.
Let's look ahead a little bit. Obviously, the game against Iowa was a big game. Not a lot of students turned out for it. Weather wasn't necessarily favorable. IU students are running out of excuses for why they don't show up and watch this team. First time they've won a conference home game since they beat Northwestern a few years ago. So IU students haven't had the opportunity to see a lot of success. Next week is senior day. Wisconsin comes to town. And odds are, if you're watching this, you have an idea of what's at stake, because IU playing Wisconsin in a situation where they have the chance to control their own destiny, go to a Rose Bowl, or even go to the Big Ten title game. They win this game against Wisconsin, their chances go up measurably. What chance does IU have next week against the Badgers? What do they need to do to step up big in the last home game of the regular season?
I think Coach Wilson talked about just making strides every week. Not just getting better week to week or game to game, but day to day. I think this whole week just coming, being prepared for practice, having a good week, and if they do the things they've done, put points on the board offensively, control the line of scrimmage, I think they have a good shot to win. Wisconsin's got a backup quarterback coming in, he's going to struggle. I believe that if the Hoosiers come to play, continue to put pressure on the quarterback as they have up front, he's going to struggle and make mistakes.
Mark Schleybaugh tweeted at Pat40 that if he has the Boise bus, he wants to jump on the Hoosier bandwagon. He wants to see IU in Pasadena. I'm sure everyone in Bloomington feels the same way. We'll see if they have the opportunity to do that next week. That's all the time we have here. Thanks for joining us. For Garrett WInegar, I'm Jimmy Cavanaugh. Feel free to check us out next week after the biggest game easily of the regular season. So long from Memorial Stadium. Good night. Travel well. Thanks for watching, folks. See you next time.